want to give a small lecture on the Aram Khachaturian Suite for Viola and Piano, 1929. This was a piece that was just published in 2016 by Hans Sikorsky, and it was a fun piece to learn. I'll tell you a little bit about the background of it. So Khachaturian was born in Tbilisi, Georgia, in 1903, and died in Moscow, in Russia, in 1978. And he wrote this piece at the age of 26 in 1929 during his first year of attendance at the Moscow Conservatory. It was premiered, or given in a private performance, I should say, in 1930. And apparently, Khachaturian wrote about 50 or so works while he was a student at the conservatory. Some of these early works he never sought to have published because he just felt they weren't up to par with his other things. And that includes this piece, the Suite for Viola and Piano. But I think it's important to take a look at pieces like this, especially because of, well, you have sometimes well-known composers, like, for instance, Bruckner, we know very well, did not initially, have his Symphony Number Zero as a cataloged work of his own that he wanted to be out there. And of course, we all know the piece, and it's a phenomenal piece. That was nicknamed that because he was somewhat insecure, I guess, maybe was too influenced by the local music critics, but after he wrote it, and he just felt so ashamed, he wrote a big zero on the manuscript, which is how the symphony got its name. So yeah, I think it's worth taking a full look at these kind of pieces. And apparently this piece was probably in more than two movements. According to the biography of Khachaturian by Yusezovich, it seems that there were, according to him, more than two movements. There's a lack of instructions in the published music, no dynamics, and only tempo markings that say eighth equals 92, quarter equals 69, no actual tempo marking names. So being a little bit of a pioneer in figuring out how to interpret this work, I felt it was personally necessary to do a plan, to make a plan for how to do the dynamics and to bring the piece off. The music itself, by just on its own, is very attractive. It just needs a little imagination from the performer, how to sell it, given this lack of instructions. I found in order to understand Khachaturian and his music, it's good to know a little bit about his early life and what kind of music influenced him. So, as I said, he was born in 1903 in Tiflis, Georgia, which was at the time was under the rule of Tsarist Russia. And in this area he lived, Georgians, Armenians, and Azerbaijanians lived together in this community, mixing their cultures and their music. The popular folk music of this region that saturated Khachaturian's mind were songs accompanied by popular instruments of the region. These instruments included guitar-like instruments such as the baglan, the barbat, kamanche, lavta, oud, the kanun, and the tar, and also flute-like or blown instruments like the me, the parka pazuk, the paku, the chevet, and the string. And drums included the daf, the davul, the dol, and the duduk. The harmonic language of of these folk songs was very distinctive, much of it being built around a strict scale, many times with the inclusion of an augmented step second for in the stepwise motion that usually either occurred just below the tonic on the 6th and 7th scale degrees, like a harmonic minor scale somewhat, or just above the tonic on the 2nd and 3rd scale degrees. There was always a strong emphasis on the home key, as well as the 4th and 5th scale degrees, being prominent in the melodic lines and the harmony. The folk ensembles often included a melody built on these scales, and it was accompanied by like the home key, a kind of a drone, usually the tonic, and sometimes it had the 4th or the 5th with it, and then some light drums. So Aram heard this music played on the streets by local musicians, as well as being sung by both of his parents, who were not exactly musicians, but they did have a knack for amateur music making. Aram came from a humble background, and his quest for learning music was very difficult because of this, but his strong desire to be a composer never let him give up the dream. While he was studying at Tbilisi Commercial College from 1913 to 1920, he played in an amateur wind band and started composing piano pieces. He followed his father to Moscow in 1922 when he was 18. Because his father had left for there when he was 13. Aram initially studied biology at the Moscow University from 1922 to 25, and eventually he was able to manage to get himself into the Nissan Institute of Music in 1924 when he was 20, where he learned to play cello and he learned music theory. He was a bit older than the other students in the school, but he understood that it was essential for him to do this so he could get the necessary training that he needed so he could eventually be accepted into the Moscow Conservatory of Music, which he did in 1929, the same year that he wrote this suite for viola and piano. Aram must have felt a little bit out of place at the conservatory at the beginning stages for three reasons. He was a bit older than everybody else, he had no money, and he had Armenian roots compared to the other Russians he was around. These barriers, however, only strengthened his resolve to be a successful composer, and he never forgot his Armenian heritage. Rather than shy away from it, he decided to celebrate it. And from his work, probably his earliest work of significance, the Armenian folk songs come through very strongly, as they do in this work. The first thing any violist will notice when taking a look at this piece are the 6 flats in the key signature, and the music centers around A flat minor. However, the scalar material is not an A flat minor scale given the G flat in the music. This scalar material, most clearly seen in the first movement in measure 10 against the drone A flat and E flat, certainly evokes the Armenian folk song Aram grew up with. While the Armenian folk song influence saturates both pieces in the suite, Aram freely departs from the strictness of the scale in order to maintain a connection with his colleagues in the compositional field who are writing in a more avant-garde style, which emphasize the fluidity of chromaticism. Some examples of departing from this scale can be seen in the piano part in measure 4, in measure 7, and measure 8. The rhythms Aram uses are rather improvisatory and melismatic. They have a very free shape to them, much like the Armenian folk music sounded as musicians played that on the street. The viola cadenza against the piano drone is another example where Armenian folk music is being imitated, as he mostly adheres to the strict scale, but then he does eventually break from that scale in measure 54 with the D flat in measure 84, he actually shifts the music up one step. And this key shift, to me, was sort of analogous with Aram's personal life. Kind of a move from his home of Tiflis to Moscow, where his life became more successful and he was able to realize his dreams. And the music even seems a bit more optimistic at this point in the music. So I wanted to show you a little bit of what I'm talking about as far as the scale in the music. And I'm just going to play you a little bit of analysis. So I'm going to turn my iPad around here, hopefully not press any buttons, and show you.